Hi everybody and welcome to Coding to Christmas Challenge 14. So today we are going to take a further look at functions and how we can use the dry principle of do not repeat yourself. So this week we've got three Christmas functions to code out. So the first one asks us to write a function that asks the user for a number and then accepts that number of names input by the user. It's going to then loop through the names and print Merry Christmas plus whatever name the user is inputting. Okay, so the first thing you do whenever you're creating a function is use the def keyword. Then you can type the name of it. So I'll call this one Merry Xmas. And then whenever you create one, you just can put pass in. That means it's ready for your code to be entered. Okay, so once we've done that, just zoom in a little bit on my code. The first thing I'm going to do is, I know I'm going to get a list of names, so I will create an empty list. So to do that, I just say names equals and then the square brackets that are empty. Here, I'm going to have the parameter, so the parameter that I will need in my code. So I'm going to do for x in range, so this is the amount of times I'm going to ask the user to enter a name, and this is going to be number. I'm going to pass this parameter here, so whatever gets input here will then get input here, so the user will be the one that decides the range for this loop. And then I'm going to ask, what is your name? And then what I'll do is I'm going to append, so this is the name of my empty list, I'm going to append to it whatever name is entered. So that has to be the singular name because it's going to be whatever's entered here will get pushed here. So then what I'll do is once the for loop finishes, I'll print out my list again to see if it's working. So whenever you are coding a function, if you want to use that, you call it. So to call the function, you state the name of the function. This is outside of the tabs here, so we know it's definitely separate from the function. And here I'm going to type in a number. So this number should go in here and then ask us this 3 times. So you can see on the right hand side it's asking me my name, so I'm going to add my name, I'll add Jake's name, I'll add Gray's name, and it's printed out our list. So we know this code is working. It's printing it as many times, so I can change it to 1, see if that does it only once. Yep. So we're looping through, we're getting the name, and then we're adding it to a list. And we've seen from previous weeks, we can use our for loop to loop through our list. So I'll create another for loop within my function, and I'll say for Xmas name in names, so in this list, I'm going to print Merry Christmas, and then I'm going to concatenate on the end the Xmas name. So what this is going to do, it's going to firstly we'll input the names, and then once the names are in this list, it will go through and for each one it'll print out the name. So I'll test it with 1, and I'm getting Merry Christmas Saf. You can make it a little bit more festive, put a exclamation mark on the end. And this time I'll run it with 3. And so I'll put my name in, Jake's name in, and Gray's name in. And now we're getting Merry Christmas for each one. So that is our first function, where we write a function that asks the user for a number and then accept that number of names input by the user. It then looped through the names and printed Merry Christmas and their name. So let's move on to our second function. So our second function is asking us to create a function that will accept different Christmas greetings and will output the greeting reversed. We had and the length of the greeting, but I feel like that wasn't on the actual leaflet. So let's get rid of this one that we've already done and let's create our second function. So let's call this function reverse Christmas greeting. So when you're naming a function, it's always useful to name it for what the function does. Just because it's easy to read your function and then have the expectation of what the code underneath will do. Okay, so what the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to need an empty string to hold my new reverse greeting. So I'm going to call this variable rev greeting and just have it as an empty string. For my for my while loop, I'm going to be using the length of whatever greeting I enter. So I'm going to have greeting be the parameter that gets passed, and then to work out the length of the greeting, I can just do a new variable greeting len and then use the len keyword and then greeting. So whatever gets passed in here will go in here and then I'll be able to see the length of it. And here is my while loop. So I'm going to say while greeting len does not equal 0, I'm going to take 1 from it each time. And then into my new string, my new empty string of rev greeting, I'm going to add each letter from my original greeting, but I'm going to use the index of greeting len to get the last letter. So say my my greeting's 5 letters long. I have to take one away anyway because remember Python starts at 0, so it'll be index 4 but 5 letters. So for me to get the index here, I take one away. So say it was 5, this would now be 4, and then greeting 4 would give us the last letter of our greeting, then it'd loop and do 3, and it'd just keep adding it to this string, so it prints it all at once. And then what I'll do is, so we can see it, I will print out the greeting. Again, if I want to call my function, I have to state the name of the function at the bottom, and then I will pass it a Christmas greeting. So I'll put in Merry Christmas, and I'll run it. And I've just made a mistake here because I've put greeting, but I wanted to put greeting length. That's the variable I want to take away from each time. So I'll try run it again. And you can now see that we're getting Merry Christmas reversed. There is an alternative way to do this. So this is kind of more of a logic-based way. This is going through it step by step to reverse it. Another way you can do it is much, much shorter. And what we do is get rid of all of this, and we use whatever is passed here as greeting, and then we're going to use our slicing, and you'll know from previous lessons that -1 always gives us the last letter. So this is just a very easy way to reverse a string. So let's run that again. I'll change this so you can see that it changes. Say Happy New Year, and you can see it's reversed it. So this is just something you might not have yet seen, but have now learned as a very, very quick way to reverse your greeting. So both ways, this is just another example as well of how in Python and in lots of coding languages, you can have lots of different ways but get to the same result. So this is just an example of that. Okay, so on to our last function, we're going to create a third function that's going to check if the following statements are palindromes. So the first thing we need to check is a Santa at NASA. The second is Christmas snow angels, and the last is flee to me remote elf. So again, using our def keyword to show it's a function, and I'm going to call this one Xmas palindrome. And here I'm going to pass it a statement. So logically, the way I want to do this, so a palindrome is a word that is the same backwards as it is forwards. But this here, for example, Python checks the exact character. So a capital A to Python is not the same as a lowercase a, and these spaces in between, even if it is a palindrome, it won't be able to recognize that. So the first thing I need to do is format my statements. So whatever's passed as the statement, I'm now going to change into being lowercase. And then I'm also going to use one of the Python functions called the replace function, and in a new variable. So statement.replace, so like you did statement.lower here, that does it all lowercase. This is going to go through whatever is passed and replace, and the first one is what it's going to replace, and then the second is what with. So I'm going to replace a space with no space. Okay, and to check that's all worked, I'm just going to print Xmas statement. I can see I've made a little typo here, which gets highlighted for us in yellow. And then, so to test this little bit of code, I'm going to call my function, so Xmas palindrome, and let's just put in this statement. So now we can see that on the right, it's all lowercase, there's no spaces. So now this helps us to be able to check if it's a palindrome. And the way to do that is we're going to now reverse that and see if frontways and backways is the exact same word, because that's how you check for a palindrome. So we can get rid of this print statement because we don't need to check our code for that anymore. But what we do need to create is our reverse statement. And I'm going to use the logic from the previous question, and I'm going to say Xmas statement and then use my square brackets and use the slicing -1. So that is going to give us our reverse word. And because it's using this Xmas statement here, it'll already be formatted for us. But what we can do is now we can print them both out. So we can print out Christmas statement, and underneath we can print rev statement. Okay. If we run, we can see these are identical. So technically it's a palindrome, but we want to make it a little bit neater than that. We just want to know if it is a palindrome or if it's not. At this point, we have to make the guess ourselves by using our eyes, and humans are often prone to error. So we want to automate this. We want to get the computer doing it. So to do that, in our function, we can use an if statement. So we can say if the Xmas statement is the same as, so double equal sign, the reverse statement, then print, and then we can pass it the statement and say the statement is a palindrome. If it doesn't equal each other, then we can use our else statement to catch it and print out the same statement but is not a palindrome. And let's run that, and we can see now it proves that that one is a palindrome, which is great. So let's change that up for Christmas snow angels. So Christmas snow angels is not a palindrome, which we can see. So that's great. And let's do our last one. And it says to us that Fleeta Remote Elf is a palindrome, which when you have a little look at it, you can see that it is. So that was just three common common functions that we use to get you to be able to input your code into a function. This makes it more reusable. Anytime I want to run this, I just have to call it here. And as you see in the further weeks, functions can get more and more powerful. So that is all from me today on coding to Christmas on Challenge 14. And it will be Jake seeing you on Monday with Challenge 15. Hope you all have a great weekend filled with Christmassy fun. Bye!